I think I'm live. It's still Saturday, the 15th of July 2023, and I thought it was quite a serious chapter, the last one, as Life as Carola, which is the life of Joan Grant as Carola in the 16th century. So it's over 500 years ago, just as well. It's a bit rough in parts. Joan Grant lived between 1907 and 1989. And this is a book of her own far memory. She was the daughter of Lord Griffin, who, and she was banished. They were banished from the castle with her mother. Her mother died. Anyway, she is now grown up, or she's in her 20s, I think, and she is in the convent of the White Sisters. Recant. I must have hit my head when I fell, for there was a bruise on my temple. By the fading of the dim light, I could tell I had been unconscious for several hours. There was a bowl of milk and part of a loaf on the floor beside me. I knew that this had been brought to strengthen me for further penances. Francesca had told me that it was dangerous to eat much after a long fast, so piece by piece I soaked the bread, musty with blue mould, in the milk, and ate it very slowly. Someone had stripped off my habit, and I shivered in my thin shift until I saw they had left another robe for me to wear, the robe of a condemned heretic. I wondered in what manner I should find death. I had heard it whispered that sometimes the unrepentant were strangled. Would this be more terrible than the slower suffocation of smoke? I prayed to my far and yet familiar gods that I should be strong enough not to deny the knowledge that they had given to me. I ought to find it very easy to die, for I had not had happiness for my companion since I was born as Carola. There was no one to weep because I had left earth, and when I could lift the tapestry to walk out of the world, there would be those who would welcome me in long friendship. When I heard the key grate in the rusty lock, I thought that the abbess had come back, but it was the lame nun. I saw that she was habited in black, the cowl pulled down to hide her face. Then I knew that I must meet torture, for it was in the robes like this that the monks had chanted Sophia to the pyre. She beckoned me to follow her. I wondered if they were going to burn me. Sometimes they used green wood to suffocate the heretics. Measured in earth time, Sophia had not screamed very long, but pain cannot be measured in earth time. I must die silent. I must keep safe my knowledge that we are given nothing which is beyond our strength. I seem to hear Petruchio's voice. A man may overlord his ass, but God does not give his children a burden they cannot carry. I must throw my thoughts forward, like a stone across a river, to where Petruchio will be waiting for me. He will be very splendid in heaven. I shall put off my burnt flesh as he put off the body of a dwarf. From there this ordeal will seem a little thing. I shall hear him say, "You were brave, my Carola," and I shall answer, "It is forgotten." The wind blew cool on my forehead. We followed a little twisting path between high elder bushes. There seemed to be a lightness about my body. Before he died, Petruchio said that he felt his body loosen its hold on him. Perhaps it will be easy to die, for my body is weaker than they realize. I shall step from this earthly shell like a fish slipping between the reeds, smooth and cool and quiet. We came to a wicket in a wall and passed through it. I was in the nuns' burial ground. I wondered which of the nameless mounds concealed the body of the old abbess. I thought I was to be shown my open grave. I must think of the earth as the foster mother of trees, as a kindly darkness where the moles hold siege, not as a suffocation pressing down on me. It was twilight and bats were flickering between the cypresses. I saw that the stone slab which covered an ancient tomb had been pushed back to disclose a flight of steps. Again the nun beckoned me to follow her. It was curious that I did not try to run away, but I knew that to think of flight would be to acknowledge fear, and so be vanquished by it. The steps were of narrow bricks, worn and rose-red, and the roof was low and vaulted. At the foot of the steps we came into a dark, dank passage, and turned to the right. We seemed to go a very long way. The lantern lit up the mouths of other tunnels, and I heard rats scampering away through the darkness. The floor was dry now, and it seemed to be sloping upwards, though there were no more steps. At the end of the passage there was a door. It was of age-blackened wood and had 2 heavy iron bolts that ran into sockets in the brickwork. They were drawn back, but instead of opening it, the nun put out the lantern and knocked 3 times. I heard the grating of another rusty bolt from the far side of the door. It opened grudgingly on stiff hinges. I saw a room like a chapel with a barrel-vaulted ceiling. It was empty. The walls had once been frescoed, the plaster had crumbled, but there were still traces of faded paintings. There was a rack of whips against the wall, some with new thongs unfrayed, some stiff with old blood. Irons were heating on a charcoal brazier. In the middle of the room there was a coffin stone, shaped like a bier. At its 4 corners there were ropes threaded through the rings of staples driven into the floor, and round it had been placed the 4 great candles that are set to watch the dead. I felt someone watching me. In the shadow of a low doorway stood the abbess. She too was dressed in black, but her cowl was not drawn forward to hide her face. She looked like the image of death in ignorant men's imagination. The skull seemed visible through the bleached skin, and her eyes glittered from their cavernous sockets. Her voice was slow and level, but in it there was a hideous, musky excitement. It seems that Satan has a reluctant bride. There is still time for you to turn penitent. I will not lie to torture. Then follow me and see your marriage bed. My feet felt slow and heavy, as though I were clogged in a nightmare. I followed her into the room beyond. I saw 6 more figures watching me through the narrow eyelids in their cowls. Each held a long taper, and by this light I saw a mason's tools beside a pile of mortar. The walls were unplastered. Here and there a brick was missing, as in Dovecot. At the far end there was a narrow shelf in the wall, but half concealed by freshly mortared bricks. The abbess pointed to it. Your bridal bed, and we shall draw the curtains close. See, we are kindly, for we leave a space where Satan can depart when he has tired of you. I bit my lips and felt the salt blood spurt into my mouth. She grew impatient that I kept my silence. You seem reluctant. Where are those proud boasts you spoke to me? You said you would be proud to die for hearsay. You shall be proud. Perhaps you will be the first who had died in silence. No prayers, no cries, no piteous supplications. The others have lain here many centuries, but there will be one more companion next to you. No, 2. A boy closed in a convent wall. I heard my voice, as it were, far away. You mean Francesca? And her voice gloated as warm oil. Francesca and her son, you were both fools. You thought I was deceived by all your desperate measures of concealment. I laughed and watched you. She had to bear the child before she could receive her punishment. The child was shriveled to save its soul. Francesca will have barren motherhood in hell. You bricked her up alive? She lived 3 days, and when at last her voice was silent, the baby wailed all through another night to feel her empty breast could do, cold to his mouth. I must have fainted, for the next thing I knew I was stretched naked on the coffin stone. The robes had been knotted round my ankles and wrists, and had been drawn so taut that it seemed my bones must be wrenched from their sockets. The lame nun stood beside me with a scourge, the voice of the abbess, "Recant!" Then the scourge fell, the thin skin across my breast split wide. "Recant! I must remember they can only torture Carola. I am inviolate from them. Master, shine upon me in strength. Do not let my wisdom be blinded by the cringing of my flesh. Let Carola hear me. The cords cut into my wrist, into my feet. The black-cowled figures are afraid. They are more afraid of me than I am of pain. Still the blows fell, and between each that voice, Recant, recant, why cannot I leave my body and let them destroy it? They must not make me deny truth, or my spirit will die. Blow on the brazier to heat the irons, I heard the lame nun stumble across the room. The click of the wooden block on her withered leg sounded like nails being driven into my coffin. Have pity, death, release me from this pain, lest I should betray your master. Don't let them make me scream. I thought I had learned all pain. Recant! Pity is dead, and friends and kindliness. Apply the brand, you will be lame, Carola. Your legs will trail behind you in the dust like leper's flesh. Satan will grow impatient for his bride before he takes you. And when he sees that with what we have done to you, even his lesser demons will give you scorn. Do you smell your own flesh burn? That is a smell which will fill your nostrils to eternity. Please let me say something. She mustn't make me scream. It's so difficult to think of words. Petruchio, I'm so alone. Please let me faint, only for a little while. I will come back, but I am so tired. It's been going on for such a long time. It is very difficult, Petruchio, when it's been going on a long time. Another iron is hot. Your foot will wither like a rotten leaf curled with the heat. She leant over me, her voice rising to a scream. Satan, Satan. Thank you, Petruchio. I can speak now. You speak to yourself, Abbess. You honor yourself too much. Your name is not Satan. You're only a puny underling of hell. I have to finish this here. There's another chapter, but I will save that. Wow.